Hey, true believers, Chris Mack coming at you today with Batman 339. This is the third appearance of Poison Ivy. The print date on this was September of 1981, and this was a fun read all around. There's a follow-up story with Robin, which we will get into in a moment, and this one was called A Sweet Kiss of Poison. The writer was Gary Conway doing the writing, Irv Novak and Steve Mitchell doing the art, Ben Iota doing the letters, Adrian Roy doing the colors, and Dick Giorgato doing the editing. So all-star cast on this book. And when I talk about modern writers, kind of just, it's like some of the dialogue just feels corny or kitschy per se. Listen to the way that they introduce Batman in this issue. It goes, night people, day people. According to those who study such things, the human race is neatly divided into halves, people who live by night and people who live by day. The truth, as always, is subtler. For what of those whose lives defy neat division, who walk the twilight tightrope between two worlds, day and night? Go into modern comics. How often do you feel like, how do I want to say this? Novel, I can't think of the right word, but let's just say novel level writing. You know, nowadays, not all, because you can never just blanket statement, but you'll read some modern comics and the people will be like, oh my God, that is just like so quiche. And like, we're going to sit here and talk about coffee because it's just like LOL so random. And it's like Tumblr exploded all over the comic book. As we're here, it feels tight knit, it feels intelligent, and it moves the story forward. Because as the thing just said, what about those who do the twilight tightrope between day and night? And then right here, with the art pushing the narrative, we see Batman swinging across Gotham as the day begins. And what I love here, and this is what I meant by before Flashpoint, I love that. Let me try to see if I can twist this right. I like that they got away from the corniness of the Silver Age around the 80s, which you can kind of start to see how the shift in tonality is, which I'm glad. You know, the Adam West Batman has its place, but it did not need to be in the comics. It did not need to be in the Joel Schumacher films, blah, 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 blah. So I'm glad that it had its place, that it inspired people, but I'm glad it's dead. It was obnoxious. Here, though, this is one thing from this era before. I don't know if this is pre or post. I think this is pre-Crisis. Supertron will have to let me know. But anyway, they would show that Batman had flaws. This is when they were living in the penthouse in Gotham. And right here it shows a reflected sunbeam hits him right in the eye and he almost misses the roof of his penthouse. And Alfred even tries to tell him, sir, you've been burning the candle at both ends. You need to relax. He goes, you've been working yourself too hard. Ever since you returned from Alaska, you've been spending the nights canvassing as the streets as Batman and your days trying to catch up with the founding business as Bruce Wayne. There's the old saying about the candle to consider, sir. But Bruce is like, well, I only got 2 hours to sleep before my meeting. And you can see how it starts to wear on him because he's trying to pay attention to these business proceedings and he starts to just kind of pass out. And I love that Lucius calls him on it, like, what's wrong? I don't mean to pry into your personal life, but what's going on? From what I can see, you're just dog tired. When was the last time you took a vacation? I don't take vacations, Lucius. You're my assistant. You know that. What I know is what I see, and I see a man verging on exhaustion. Back off from all this, Bruce. Take a month, take 2, get some rest. I wish I could, Lucius, but I'm afraid that's just impossible. And, main character or villain, they're only as good as the people surrounding them. Lucius, Leslie Tompkins, Alfred. And I love that they're the ones, along with Dick, that always ground Bruce. And so they're saying, you're killing yourself, and he don't seem to care, as is the Batman. Hence why I love what they did with Nightfall, where he worked himself to the point of exhaustion and Bane broke him. Now here, he's at this gentleman's club trying to talk business, and we see this woman randomly kiss him. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you're not Raymond. He's like, I just realized, I know every member of the Empire Club, and I don't know one named Raymond. So here, spoiler alerts if you haven't read this, so you've been warned. We come to find out that this is actually Poison Ivy. And she's wanting to get as much of the wealth of Gotham as she can. So we are Bruce as Batman now. But what happens is he's all of a sudden he's not able to perform as Batman. He feels drawn, and these villains are like, oh God, it's Batman. We need to waste him. Wait, he's leaving. He's doing the job for us. And so Batman just takes off into the streets of Gotham, and he has no choice whatsoever. He is doing this against his will. He's not able to, like this guy, he's pickpocketing people here on the strip of Gotham. And he goes, Mister, here's your wallet back. Call the cops. I got more than a dozen. I want to turn myself in. I'll do that, young man. Okay, Batman, you see, I quit. I won't steal no more wallets. Batman, hey, he didn't even look at me. Am I dreaming or what? And I just like how the art here, as it drives the narrative, he just looks hunkered down, just like a zombie, essentially. Now, one thing I do want to point out that I think is kind of cool is the print date on this was 81. The movie came out in 1980, but who knows how long ago that they drew this before it printed. But it goes, now showing Superman 2, which was one of the best films, which in my opinion, the Donner cut's a lot better, but we all have our points. Now, anyway, the whole point of this plot is Ivy wants everyone to sign over their assets of the Wayne Foundation. And they're like, we're not going to do it, lady. And you come to find out that the kiss is basically, it says, my God, it's her lipstick, some kind of hypnotic agent, a drug mixed into her lipstick. And so they can't turn against their will. And they're saying, lady, even though you're making us do this, we're going to make sure that we tell everybody what you're doing. And she says, go right ahead. She says, you could try, but part of my hypnotic suggestion is anytime you try to talk about these business proceedings, you're just going to get it stuck in your throat. So if they try to go to the paper or whatever, it's just going to get caught in their throat and they can't say anything, which is a beat for this story arc, by the way. And one thing that's interesting is how Ivy, at least here, she says she's never killed anybody before. And she just kind of leaves everyone to their own devices. Like she throws what do you call it? Not an ivy. What the hell is this thing called? A plant around his neck. And she goes, you really deserve to die. But I've never killed. Not yet. And I don't plan to start now. And she said, give us a kiss and I'll take that nasty vine off. No. Then the Hades with you, Batman. I'm not the clingy type. I know when I'm not wanted. Get rid of that choker yourself. So on top of having to fight this hypnotic drug, he's just getting his butt kicked left and right. And the story ends with him trying to call the commissioner. And if you remember that plot point I talked about, that's what hits the next beat for the next issue. Now we follow up with the Robin story. And he goes, my name's Dick Grayson, but everyone knows me by another name as the Batman sidekick, the ex-Boy Wonder called Robin. Before I was Robin, I was also Boy Wonder, a kid called Dick of the Flying Graysons. And I got excited because I saw the little teasings for Haley's Circus, and then we saw Hill Circus, and I'm like, hey, it's the Dead Man! This is Jerry Conway again writing, Irv Novak and Bruce Patterson art, John Costanza lettering, Adrian Roy doing the colors, and Dick Giordano, editor. So I'm not sure what led up to Bruce and Dick parting ways, but at this point he's left college. He's not really wanting to be Robin anymore. But the story here where it leads up is it says that he got a call from his friend Bozo the Clown, who is part of the Haley Circus. And he said that there was a job opening. He says, of course I jumped at it. And I like how, Dick has that circus entertainer mentality. He goes, there's not many real circuses left. You know what I mean by a real circus, the kind with tents that set up in the open air instead of some civic auditorium. And here, I love how this ties into Dead Man, who was just recently introduced. But this isn't Boston Brand, obviously, because no one can see him. When I was doing the review for Dead Man, I flipped through a lot of his history. And his brother, what's his name? Cleveland Brand, I think's his name. At the Hill Circus, the big attraction is Cleveland Brand. There it is. I had to stop and think about it. But he takes up his brother's mantle in the Hill Circus. So I love that even though it's not Dead Man, it at least ties into what's going on in the comics. And here he goes. Cleve's spraying gave me my chance. I've been having second thoughts about my career as Robin, and particularly my relationship with Batman. When my old friend Waldo, not Bozo, the clown, wrote to tell me there was a job at the circus, I jumped at it. I wanted to know if I can make it as myself without Robin. So the whole story is he's doing this triple flip in the air without the net. But as it goes, we get a look into his past with his parents and his dad saying, I said, be careful, Richard. I guess I reached too far. Someday you're going to be performing without that net. If you continue to overreach, we'll have to find another partner for the Flying Graysons. Because you, my lad, are going to be splattered all over the center ring. But Dad, you always said we've got to keep reaching, because that's the only way we can grow. So I love how it turns into a life lesson here. And I love the mother-father dynamic here, because sometimes as a dad, and I've learned this, you can say something and you realize that after it leaves your mouth that it wasn't exactly what you meant. And it can be the same thing with mom, and sometimes the other parent can interpret what they're trying to say, and it helps. So here, the mother says, what your father meant was only that you should make absolutely sure of your abilities, Richard. Keep reaching, but when you reach, know what you're reaching for. Be sure of yourself, and you can never reach too far. And then his dad says, listen to your mother, Richard. She knows what I mean, even if I don't. That's excellent freaking storytelling right there, guys. That's absolutely beautiful and shows the type of relationship he had with his family. And it all comes spiraling back to Dick as he's doing the flip, talking about how, the Batman taught me to reach beyond what I could really be to become Robin. My parents taught me to reach but know my limitations, but try to see how far I could exceed them. And even though here he makes a mistake, he's still able to land on his feet. And he goes, those heroes I now know are not in the past. They're part of the present, and they're part of me. I'm Dick Grayson, who is the son of the Flying Graysons and the ward of the Batman. They made me what I am. But I'm more than what each of them had wanted me to be. I am myself. So it leaves you want more to see where Dick's going to go. Obviously, he goes on to be Nightwing with the Teen Titans. But here, I just love how he has this sort of crisis of character, and he wants to find himself, so he goes back to his roots. So it was just an excellent little follow-up story that wasn't boring. It didn't follow anything of the main story, but you still cared because it was great storytelling. And speaking of good storytelling, the first issue, they're both written by Gary Conway, makes you want to read more about what's going on here. So I'm hoping to pick up the next issue because I want to see how Batman's able to thwart Ivy. If you guys have enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and grab a copy or wherever it is you like to grab your comics and action figures. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little Ivy bell next to subscribe, that way we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, I hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.